Good morning, folks. I'm Myra Ansari here for Wave Now. We are going to be joining a press conference going on right now, just a little bit late, so I apologize for that. Governor Beshear and several city and state leaders are coming together to celebrate Kentucky State Park's 100-year anniversary and to highlight the importance of being long-term investments into our city and state parks. Let's listen in.
God's Museum. I'm glad you have a museum background. Thank you so much. Thanks, Governor.
This park is also blessed to have a strong foundation board that supports it in so many ways. So next we have Carol Timmons, Tom Sawyer State Park Foundation Board President, to talk about how special this park is. I know that she's very interested in the pool improvements as hundreds have come out for the annual Splash Fest.
The members of the Tom Sawyer State Park Foundation Board are pleased to welcome Governor Beshear, Deputy Mayor Barbara Sexton Smith, Council President Winkler, and other officials. We are proud that EP Tom Sawyer State Park was selected for the kickoff of Kentucky State Park's 100th anniversary celebration. As you've heard, this beautiful and rare urban state park provides an exceptional variety of opportunities for recreation, sports, entertainment, and nature exploration. It is one of many gems in the Kentucky State Park system. I'm glad to have this chance to tell you a little bit about our nonprofit organization. The Tom Sawyer State Park Foundation was formed in 1982 by neighbors who fought to keep this land from being sold for development. They believed this special green space was worth saving, and aren't we glad they did? Since then, our mission has been to support and advocate for EP Tom Sawyer State Park. Our foundation is responsible for many improvements you see today. One of the earliest accomplishments was obtaining a Bingham Foundation grant for the trees that encircle the fitness trail and continue to provide shade for runners and walkers to this day. Our foundation also is responsible for raising funds for the splash pad and other improvements at the park's Olympic-sized swimming pool. With financial contributions from the Sawyer family, Louisville Metro, and other private donors, we have a wonderful splash pad that debuted 7 years ago. And this building we're standing in is another project that originated through our foundation's efforts. The foundation invested about $100,000 in the design and engineering plans for the Sawyer Hayes Center. Then the late Jean Sawyer Hayes, widow of EP Tom Sawyer, donated $1 million toward the construction of this lovely venue, on the condition that her donation was met with equivalent state dollars. Jean and daughters Diane and Linda often toured the building during construction, which was completed in 2009. And I must mention our foundation's part in bringing about the park's pickleball complex that opened 3 years ago. After learning about the explosive growth of pickleball, we pushed for state funding that led to 8 tennis courts being converted into 16 pickleball courts. Those 16 courts are in constant use. I even heard the sounds of pickleballs bouncing when I walked the dog on New Year's Eve. It is important for community volunteers to step up and make a difference in the parks they love and enjoy. Our foundation's efforts are proof that volunteerism matters. However, it is also essential for ample state dollars to be allocated to maintain and improve our Kentucky state parks, which are valuable economic assets. We know restaurants, hotels, and other businesses around EP Tom Sawyer State Park benefit immensely from dollars generated by park visitors, and I'm sure that's true at parks across the state. To keep those tourism dollars flowing, we must invest in our state parks. That way, future generations of Kentuckians and visitors to Kentucky can experience the bounty of nature and opportunities for recreation in our Commonwealth for another 100 years. Thank you.
And finally, we're going to hear from Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet Secretary Lindy Casebeer.
Thank you, Governor. I'd like to really reiterate the importance of our parks. It's been stated here, all the activities that take place at our parks what they've meant to this Commonwealth over the past 100 years. They have been community centers. They have been economic drivers for our local communities. They put people to work when they were being built, and they put people to work after they were completed. And they have been just a hub of activity in these local communities and are so important to the daily lives of all of those that live within distances, close distances to the parks, for our neighbors and our fellow Kentuckians. But they also mean so much for those that come in and what they have meant to the tourism bottom line for Kentucky. So, Governor, we appreciate your support, your unwavering support for the parks. I'd like to also recognize our Commissioner, Russ Meyer, and our team that surrounds us here today, because they on a daily basis lead the effort for the state parks. From Pine Mountain to Lake Barkley, from Carter Caves to Lake Cumberland, our parks have incredible natural wonders that attract visitors from inside Kentucky and beyond. And as we celebrate our 100th anniversary, again, we appreciate the governor's support in recognizing that many of our parks are in dire needs of improvements. We hope that the General Assembly will include these vital upgrades in the final budget. Parks cannot operate without properly funding our employees, and the cuts to vacant positions must be restored. We encourage everyone to reach out to the legislators and ask them to approve funding for Kentucky State Parks and eliminate those reductions. This funding will ensure that our parks can continue to thrive and provide amazing tourism experiences for visitors and to Kentuckians in our time of need. Our parks have stepped up during tornadoes, during floods. Just recently down at Dale Hollow, even the park manager was without water because of the pipes broke in that local community. And folks from Albany were able to come to Dale Hollow State Park to get water and to take showers. So that's just another example of how our parks step up for our fellow Kentuckians in their times of need. Thank you to everyone that joined us here today. We appreciate the Louisville Sports Commission being here to show your support. The BMX Derby City Nationals event held here on Labor Day weekend is a major tourist draw and an economic driver for Louisville. And Mr. Winkler, I know that you're especially proud of that, as is Deputy Mayor Barbara Sexton-Smith. None of this would be possible without our governor's steadfast leadership and support. So, Barbara, we thank you. We thank the governor. Harold, we thank you for what the foundation does. And special thanks to Andrew Spence and your team here at Tom Sawyer with the foundation board and the work and your dedication to this cause. We appreciate you so much. Thank you.
So today is an exciting day where we kick off the 100th anniversary of our state parks, and we fight for a budget that serves our families. I'd be remiss in talking about that budget if I didn't take a moment to talk about public education. We are at a point in time where our economy is booming, best years for tourism, best years for private sector investment, lowest unemployment we've seen, building the 2 biggest battery plants on planet Earth. Kentucky is on a roll. But we cannot stay number 2 in per capita economic development if we are 44th in starting teacher pay and 40th in average teacher pay. What the House budget does not do is provide significant funding that would enable real raises for our public school educators. I'm going to continue to push our 11% across the board raise that's needed for every single employee of Kentucky's public schools. As we're here in Jefferson County, we know we have far too many vacancies from our teachers to our bus drivers, and a legislature can't blame JCPS when they underfund pupil transportation by $20 million and don't provide the money for competitive salaries that can get us the number of bus drivers that we need. This is not partisan. Tennessee, with a Republican governor and a Republican legislature, last year passed the largest raise for educators in their history. That's our competition. Ohio's doing it. Indiana's doing it. Thankfully, our legislators given raises to our state employees, to our state police, to corrections officers, teachers, educators, cafeteria workers, bus drivers have been left out in each of those budgets. It's time that we step up and also acknowledge that simply raising the per pupil SEEK formula amount is not going to help. Remember, there are fewer students right now across the United States, but coming into JCPS. And so simply raising that per pupil amount doesn't raise the overall dollars that they will receive. In fact, statewide, there'll be the same amount of money going to our public school systems in 2 years as goes right now under that House budget. We've just had the 3 biggest budget surpluses of all time, $1.5 billion, $1.3 billion, over $1 billion, 3 years in a row. We have the money to invest in our state parks. We have the money to invest in education. And as we're doing it, it is time for universal pre-K, when paired with investments in childcare, will be a game changer in this Commonwealth. I refuse to sit back and continue to see over half of our kids show up for kindergarten not being ready, and so many of them never catching up. Every year that goes by that we don't pass universal pre-K, 34,000 Kentucky kids miss out on those services. Our investment, which we can more than afford, would mean every year 34,000 of our kids that come and enjoy this park would have those services, would be kindergarten ready. And because we move every 4-year-old to universal pre-K, we'd free up about 4,000 federally funded childcare slots that would create more opportunity for parents with younger children to get their kids in childcare and to get back to work. If we're serious about talking about workforce, universal pre-K is the single largest, fastest, most impactful thing that can be done to get people back to the workforce in the short term and in the long term. It's been proven every single place it's been done. I want to commend the city of Louisville in every part of its government for supporting pre-K, for looking for ways to do it. But this ought to be something we ought to step up as a state and do, knowing if we do it, even places that are childcare deserts, the 4-year-old issue will be solved, and we will be able to then focus on those next steps and next steps. The House budget proposal won't add 1 additional slot in childcare, meaning whatever portion of those 32,000 kids not getting pre-K that currently don't have any form of childcare won't get that additional assistance. Folks, now is the time. Steps that are taken in blue states, red states, purple states, you pick, just smart steps that ought to be taken. But today we're here supporting those in the green shirts that are up here with that great logo. I like that. We're really proud of our parks. We're really proud of our parks employees. Happy 100th birthday. We're going to get you a budget that's going to ensure we have 100 years more. Thank you all. We'll open it up to questions if you got them.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you just talk about your reaction towards the House passing the budget about the juvenile justice system?
Our juvenile justice system, when I came into office, hadn't had any significant change since the 70s. We were paying our individuals who work in our pre-adjudication detention facilities, which can be dangerous places, about $30,000 a year. Because of that, we didn't have the staffing we needed. And these buildings are all from the 70s. We had drop ceilings in what was supposed to be a secure facility. I run towards problems, not away from them. And we have made more changes over the past 2 years than we've seen in the history of that system. We separated boys and girls for the first time ever. They should have never been in the same facility, and no plan can be safe that doesn't have them in separate facilities. That's why I'm disappointed that the House failed to fund 2 new female-only facilities that would put them in areas of the state to lessen the burden on law enforcement and others to transport them to those facilities. We have shown, since we've separated boys and girls, that we can protect each of those individuals, especially the females, by having them in their own facility. The other thing that was in place when I became governor is housing a juvenile that is awaiting trial for murder next to one that's been ordered in by a judge for truancy, for skipping school. We've been able to separate those pending trial for very high-level violent offenses from those status offenders and low-level offenders, knowing that we kept seeing disruptions, caused by those that will probably never leave the system or head to prison later, who don't see a future, keeping those classes, those medical appointments, those parent visits from happening for others. We are making great strides and in fact are not only getting to one of the best places in terms of staffing, which we needed, now paying almost $50,000 to those officers in those facilities. We're also seeing fewer disruption and more continuity of services. But to continue that, we need funding. The House also failed to fund the necessary safety improvements in 3 separate juvenile justice facilities. That's Fayette County, Breathitt County, and McCracken County. We've made those in others. All those steps are necessary, and we've been working with a specific committee and task force of legislators to get them done. We've agreed on the steps that we need to take, but the House budget doesn't fund all of those, along with in-depth answer.
Thank you. Governor?
Yes.
OSHA is investigating the local SK battery plant after mold issues were found there, and we've also spoken to a lot of workers who are getting sick from that. Can you explain what the state is doing and your response to those workers and contractors who are getting sick out there?
Well, the OSHA is handled in Kentucky through the state agency. There's also federal parts, but we handle most of those. Any concern of workers getting sick, we need to look into, and we need to get to the facts. I work with management of Blue Oval a lot. It's going to be the largest battery plant on planet Earth, and I know that safety is very important to them. So my goal is to get to the bottom of it, get it fixed. These are our families that are working out there. They need to have a positive, healthy work environment.
You know, the 15-year-old murdered in Louisville, was a ward of the state, and CPS here from Lexington. Any information on the state investigation on how she fled the facility there?
Well, first of all, anytime we lose, especially a young person in Kentucky, but one that may be a ward of the state is a tragedy. And it's one that we've got to look at every single circumstance, avoidable or unavoidable, to make sure the next time we can do a little better, and the next time we can do a little better, and the next time we can do a little better. The challenge with these cases are they're juveniles, which means that our ability to provide information is even less than normal. My understanding is that there is an ongoing investigation in that when final will be public. And if there are mistakes made, we'll want to own them. Or if there are lessons learned, we'll want to learn them. I mean, every child that goes into state custody is in many ways a failure of society, but especially once we have them, our goal has to be, even with damaged and sometimes broken kids through no fault of their own, to do the very best for them. When we look at different ways that we serve them from foster care, this state budget doesn't do what we propose that needs to be done there. Specifically, in the foster care system, non-relatives receive a certain amount of money to help with that child. The money is for that child. But if you are related to that child and in the foster care system, the child receives less. That doesn't make sense. It creates a disincentive to have relatives in the system where we can ensure that the child is being looked after. Our budget provided the money under a new federal program to reach parity there, and I hope we'll get that back in the Senate. Joe.
I was going to ask about county clerk's offices. They're still seeing issues after the software has been launched, many long wait times. What is the state doing to make this plan better?
Yeah, we are working on the CAVIS system day in and day out. Some of the challenges are on the state side. Some are on the input side from the clerks. Some are on PVAs and whether or not those records have been digitized, updated, and ultimately that we've managed to update them over the years to ensure that a flag doesn't pop up. The good thing about this system is once we get through all these issues, people are going to be able to keep their license plate, go into different clerks' offices when they weren't able to, be able to do more things online. But we've been working on this for 8 years, and this is the last set of bugs that we need to get through. So each challenge that comes up, we jump in, we figure out exactly where the error might be. For instance, on the first day that it was launched in Jefferson County, there was an ask from the clerks to do something that would speed things up. that then created a firewall from one of our different cabinets that we then had to go to undo. So we've got everybody on this. And as we get through it, it's going to end up a much better system. Hang with us. There's a lot of moving pieces that come into it. But what that means is people aren't going to feel the bureaucracy that they used to have to deal with from different areas, that they won't have to go and solve certain challenges that might have existed, say, at the PVA's office or others. We're going to get there.
Back to the juvenile justice system, you recently approved the techniques that the guards were using within the system, but the audit found that they were using pepper spray to excessive amount. Can you just talk about where that disconnect in training is and what we can do?
Well, the first thing we've got to do is ensure those are accurate statements, and I want to get to the bottom of it. Unlike every other state audit, the agency didn't get this before the media. The agency typically is supposed to get it with a certain amount of time to respond. But if there are things that are or are not factually accurate, and to say what they've been doing in the interim. So we haven't had that opportunity, which makes me a little bit concerned about the process and then some statements that we heard after. But we've got to get this right. What I can say is since we authorized the carrying pepper spray and to some extent tasers, we have had significantly fewer disruptions and violent disruptions at these facilities. Now, I want to make sure that if these auditors raised a question, they've at least done that we go back, we look at them, and if additional training needs to be done, heck yes, we're going to do that. That needs to be done. What we have now in our system are bringing in especially some retired wardens that on the security side know this backwards and forwards, having provided those types of trainings and security inside of our prisons. Now, we don't want a juvenile justice center, pre-detention center, to mirror one of our prisons, but we want them to be as safe as them. So when we look back in time, we may have been overly heavy on individuals in leadership that rightfully so had more experience on the programming side as opposed to the direct security side. But that's something we're right-sizing right now. And again, we're working on this in real time. Any issue that comes up, we want to address. One thing we're going to ask our legislature to do is the superintendents of each of these facilities right now are merit employees, meaning there's a registrar you have to come and apply to, whether or not you've been in that system or not. Certain years in state government give you certain advantages in the hiring. Our wardens at our prisons can be hired and fired based on performance at any time. And given some of the HR concerns and others we've seen in these facilities, we're going to need the same flexibility to be able to go out and to even handpick individuals to run these facilities to get them in the place they need to be. All right. Thank you all very much. Happy 100th anniversary.